This evening, Rocket City Trash Pandas CEO Ralph Nelson announced he is resigning. We're joined now by Sports Director Mo Carter with more on the announcement. Mo?
Well, Connor, this move was shocking to everyone. Many of us here at WZDX have a professional and personal relationship with Nelson, and seeing him leave was something we didn't see coming. Now, we first heard about Nelson in 2017 when word spread that his company, Ball Corps LLC, was given permission to purchase the Mobile Bay Bears. Soon after, the team made a move to the Tennessee Valley, and piece by piece, Nelson saw his dream of owning a baseball team come true. Eventually, that team got a name in the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And after that, he would hire an all-star staff, which included World Series champ Jay Bell as the team's manager. Now, according to sources, Nelson is leaving the Trash Pandas organization for another job in minor league baseball. General Manager Garrett Foreman and VP Lindsey Knupp will now lead the organization, which begins baseball play in just a few weeks. If we found out anything else, I'll let you know. Connor, I'll get it back to you.